Well, good morning, and very pleased to welcome uh, friend and colleague Monique Candor, who is the uh, until recently the coordinator of the Crawford High School Academy of Law, and serves as the law teacher. Monique actually succeeded me in that position, and so we have a lot, I think, in common. And so, tell me, how do you like the academy?
Well, first, I just want to say it's so good to be with you, Steve, and to touch base with you again. Um, so your question again?
What just general impression? You came from the practice of law. You're an attorney and moved into the classroom for the first time as well, not an old person, but somebody who's, shall we say, matured. Uh, and and I had the experience. I was, like 62, I think, my first day in class. So just from that perspective, how was it? What was it like you expected? Uh,
Well, yes, so I had been practicing for about 20 years locally before I began teaching. And I am someone who is very comfortable with order and structure. You get that in the courtroom. Everyone knows their role. You have the judge who's presiding. So I remember when I was going into teaching, the thing that concerned me most was the disorder, the lack of structure that you can have in a classroom. And so I really focused on good class management skills before I even started. And that really helped me to be able to almost from day one enjoy teaching and creating an environment. We're going to talk a little bit about that later, but creating an environment in which students were engaged and happy to learn.
yeah, and you had that idea far before I. Uh, I remember my first couple of weeks. Uh, if I asked myself once, I asked myself, uh, 1,000 times a day, what the hell are you doing here? Uh, I, you know, I read the handbook and said to myself, okay, well, we're the Academy of Law, and these folks, they've been doing it for decades. So we're going to follow the rules. We're going to follow the law, and that lasted about a week. Uh, you know, once I said to myself, we have different goals than these rules even allow, and just started to relate to the kids.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yes.
Things turned around quickly. In my case, one of the first things we did was, these community building circles, and it was night and day.
Hmm.
After about the third circle, like 3 weeks into it, into actually doing circles, all of a sudden my classroom was, I couldn't wait to get to school. Just the kids are great, and if as long as you don't pound them over the head, they're willing to accept structure in ways I never, you know, that I didn't think was possible when I first started, because they had me for lunch. I mean, they knew I was safe, and they thought they could get away with anything, and really, they pretty much could. I'd oh, I can remember just sweating and how am I going to handle this, and thinking at night, what can I do? What can I do? And restorative justice, restorative practice, came to the rescue. Um,
Can I
did you?
jump in there, Steve?
Sure, sure.
Initially when I came in taking over from you, and of course you laid out the things that were an essential part of the Law Academy. And one of those things was the community building circles. Now, when you first introduced that to me, I was like, so we sit in a circle and we talk about things? How does that relate to law? And I was had that thought. in a not in a challenging way, but I was curious.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I was all for it. I said, let's jump into it. So, as you had instructed, I started the community building circles that first week, and it made all of the difference in building a relationship with the students and in creating that environment that I alluded to earlier, in which students feel connected to the class, they feel invested in the class, and it creates a learning environment. So from curiosity to wonderment to firm support in our community building practices.
yeah. I think that uh, to teach our students, you have to develop trust. And when everybody's being completely honest, including the teacher,
Yeah.
and people feel free to speak what's really on their minds, as opposed to what it, giving answers to questions that are needed to pass the test or whatever. Uh, in a environment where the kids are trained to be non-judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
accepting each individual for who they are, it's amazing. Many of these kids had never been in a place like that, where they felt free to speak the truth, where they are encouraged to speak the truth, where there would not be in any way chastised or punished for telling the truth. That's a freedom that really allows for that exploration. Now they're not afraid to ask a question that they wouldn't ask before because they thought it was stupid. You
You
know,
know,
I always would tell them the best questions are stupid questions.
yeah.
It's where do we go from here? Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
you're making me think of one student in particular, Yasmin Mojaro, and in fact, there there'll be a link here to her video. But she said what held her back was her accent. And in the academy and through the community building circles and the other things that we do, she learned to embrace herself. This is who she is. And she can talk and she can communicate. And one of her proudest moments is when we had the Ford Motor Company and the Henry Ford Institute come to our academy to learn what we were doing so they could take those practices back to Michigan. And we selected Yasmin as one of our student voices. And she said that was one of her proudest moments, to be with attorneys and administration and principals and to talk about what she did in our academy, how meaningful it was, and where it had brought her in terms of being able to communicate. And that's really what you and Jamie and we're continuing, is to empower these students to be their own advocates. And it's a wonderful process to see.
oh, isn't it ever? Um, every time I talk to one of the academy teachers, I have the yearning to be back in the classroom. But the one thing about this whole gig is I used to get up at 5 in the morning because I would see kids at 6:30, kids that needed help before class. They'd come and get their breakfast and we'd talk. So I was always there very early. And that was really, if somebody said, "What about teaching?" I say, "Hey, it's, I love everything about it except for when I have to get up." and
That's right.
and then, no, in those first days, a friend of mine asked, explain, how you're feeling about it. I says, well, the best I can say is it's hours and hours of frustration, which encircle moments of exhilaration.
Yeah.
And the more of those moments you get, the more you want, the better you get at it, the more you get. And then the next thing you know, it's like kids are walking into class with a smile. I mean, that's
Uh,
that's a sign that something's going right.
you know,
Uh,
there was one student I recall, and I'll just tell you, like she told me, she had a curvature of the spine, so she had a lot of pain. Came from a poor family, so they were not able to continue the physical therapy that she needed to take care of that issue. Sometimes the pain was so intense, the only reason why she came to school, she said, was to participate in the community building circles. That's how powerful effect they have. You see, students need to know that we care about them before they can care about what we're trying to teach them. So when we create that environment through restorative practices, restorative justice, the community building circles, we show them that we care. And that allows them to begin to care and to find community with their peers.
you know, and the other thing about, this, the family feeling is that, and we talk about being restorative. Um, a young man by the name of Luis Lopez in the Sweetwater district once told me that the way he viewed it is that all of us, just as a virtue of human nature, are involved personally in a restorative process.
Mhm, mhm.
And um, now you put that together with my experience, and one of the things that I found to be uh, one of the prime motivators of building that trust is when you bare your soul to the group and talk about the restoration that you need, and that while in most cases my issues were little tiny compared to the kids' issues,
Yeah.
but nonetheless we all have that in common, that we should be seeking to restore ourselves. And so once the kids really get that, hey, you know, Mr. L doesn't have that much on me. He's got the same problems I do, which, I mean, I wouldn't want to say that because I have been fortunate and lived a privileged life. But I still have my issues. And just letting the kids know that you're working on it too builds a bond that is something that they don't always get. As a matter of fact, I think they rarely get. Um, uh, and that's great. So tell us about some of the highlights of uh, teaching. I mean, I know that uh, you've done a wonderful, wonderful job. Uh,
Thank you, Steve.
and one of the tell the story. I'm pretty sure I told you, but the last day that I had students was our Academy Award night, and it was my swan song. So I was saying goodbye, and a young man who uh, had really no motivation when he started at the academy and turned into just a really nice kid who was trying. And he says, Mr. Lepig, how come you're not going to be our teacher next year? And I said, well, it's just time. I'm an old guy and uh, I've been trying to retire. But I want you to know I'd never leave if I wasn't confident that you were going to have somebody good following me. And what I'm telling you is you guys are really lucky. You're going to have a wonderful teacher, a much better teacher than I am. And he looks at me and he says, we don't want a very good teacher. We want you. So I told him I was going to take that as a compliment. And, but I was glad because you
I,
do.
I heard that story, Steve, and I love it every time you tell me.
it's, I mean, I just loved it too. But you certainly have met our expectations and exceeded them.
You asked me about some of the highlights, and There have been so many, and all of it is tied up with the students and what they take from what we give them. But I think every year, one of the programs that I enjoy the most is the interaction program. And that's where we have a collaboration between our school and Star Pal and James Pillar, a master artist and actor. And the students develop in that, as part of that program, their own monologue in which they tell a portion of their personal story. As you know, this is law. So a lot of what we do is we're teaching them advocacy. Law, being a lawyer, is about advocating for others. But before these students can advocate for others, we need to show them how to advocate for themselves. They need to be able to speak up for themselves on important issues. And so each of the students develops this personal monologue, as you know, and the culminating event is when they present this in front of their peers, administration, police officers, and even last year or the last time we were in school, we had superintendent at the time, Cindy Martin, come to the presentation. And so they are so proud of themselves that they are able to communicate on a personal level. Now, let me back up. At the beginning of each year, when I ask the students, um, are I show them some samples, some awesome samples. I say, "Are you going to be able to do this?" And the majority, I mean, there's a few who say, "Yeah, I can do that." The vast majority are, "There is no way that I am ever going to be doing that." And so, of course, it's beautiful at the end when they have matured to this point where they can share their story. And as one of the students said in her video review of the course, she said, they become vulnerable and powerful in sharing their stories. And it's what actually creates the bond in our academy.
Yeah.
Because once these students know each other's story, they realize we are all the same. We all have our individual struggles. And once we share those, we come together and we support each other. So, as you know, we all know last year was a COVID year. So, we had to transform that those monologues where we went into the black box theater, we had guests, and the students performed to a virtual platform. And the students stepped up, Steve, and they gave
Yeah.
a beautiful demonstration of their personal struggles and their personal stories. I would love for you to link in your podcast some of those stories.
And you're going to send me the information. And just for everybody who's watching, there is or listening, on letsrockpodcast.com, there is a resource section. And many of the things that we're talking about will be posted there. And very, very worthwhile. You know, when I started, uh, one of the things that occurred to me, and my friends, would ask me, why are you doing this? Uh, when at that time I could play golf, my curved spine didn't preclude golfing anymore. He says, why aren't you on the golf course? Well, uh, and it came down to uh, what I told the kids the first day of every class, and that is, you know, I'm here because I believe in you. I believe in each and every one of you. And there's a whole bunch of other people on this campus that believe in you. But what we need to do is work on your belief in yourself. Until you believe you can, you won't. And, through the 3 years, different things would happen. And I would always say, I think you're starting to believe.
Hmm.
And they'd get a little smile and say, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And then once they got there, there was no holding them back. They really, really uh, grew. just by leaps and bounds. And that's, I think, the whole package, the whole paradigm of changing from a punitive to a restorative, society, all contributes to getting them to the point where they can understand that they do have power.
Yes.
And now let's find out how you can use it. Everybody's not going to be a rocket scientist, and everybody's not going to be the best community organizer on earth. But there's something out there for you. And your job now is to find it and then go for it. Uh, they always thought I was crazy because I loved Broadway and I would sing songs. And
Oh
uh,
no,
yeah.
that's awesome.
And when I got somebody in the point where, uh, uh, they weren't sure, they didn't have, they hadn't really thought about it. Uh, I'd go to South Pacific. You got to have a dream. If you don't have a dream, how are you going to have a dream come true? And
I wish I could have heard that, Steve.
yeah. Well, I also taught him the Nebraska fight song because I told him it was important to have a priority in every classroom. And then I want you to know the priority here is Nebraska football. And I taught him the fight song. And I told him on Monday morning, following a Nebraska loss, don't ask me for anything. On the other hand, if Nebraska wins, it's a good time to ask me for something. And of course, it was all in fun, but and just the kind of kids we have. There's a young lady in the country for like 3 or 4 years from Cambodia, and sure as Nebraska's football team is not as good as it used to be, and they lose on the first weekend. And she comes walking in and she's very sad. And she says to me, as she hands me a plate of pastry, she says, I understand your University of Nebraska lost its match. And my mother and I thought this would make you feel better.
Oh, that's so sweet. They
And
got
I
one.
tried to explain to her that, sports fans in this country are just crazy. It doesn't mean anything. An hour after the game's over, I'm back to normal. I usually use a few bad words in that 60 minutes following the defeat, but then everything's fine. And she was actually surprised that I wasn't truly depressed because Nebraska lost the football game. Oh, the kids are so good. Um, and what do you see for uh, this year? You're planning on being back in the classroom? Is
Yes,
that
so this year we are planning on going back to where we were. So we've obviously reached out to, for example, Interaction, California Innocence Project, and um, our internships, our attorney mentor programs, to bring them all back into the classroom because with the exception of the California Innocence Project, which is a collaboration between our school and the California Innocence Project, in which our juniors receive actual cases from inmates who allege they've been wrongfully convicted. And our students take those cases in teams of four. They go through the files, the briefs, the letters, and then they make a recommendation to the California Innocence Project panel on whether the California Innocence Project should pursue those claims in court, continue, or whether there isn't evidence of factual innocence or new evidence, and whether they should be closed. So that was the only project that the California Innocence Project during COVID, they did not have that. So this, we will be going back to the California Innocence Project in the classroom. And that has had such an impact on our students to be involved in something authentic, something that really makes a difference. So I'm glad that we'll have that back in the classroom. As for our other projects, as I said, we transform those into virtual, and so now they'll be back on campus, which is going to be really important um, for the students and for those who, the industry partners who help us.
Well, and I'm so pleased and proud that you were recognized for your work. The superintendent of
Yeah.
the Department of Education gave out, was it 30 or maybe 32 uh, awards for civic learning uh, during the pandemic. And you and the Academy of Law were recognized as one of the 30 schools in the state to get the blue ribbon. And certainly, that would have been beyond me. I really, the computer work associated with that would have driven me insane. Uh, I have a young guy from Nairobi
Yeah.
who I searched the world for a consultant to help me with this podcast. And I found a young guy in Nairobi who's just great. And I love it. He has little kids, and his wife is going to their schools in Nairobi with gave him a bunch of material on seeds of compassion, which is the
Mm.
restorative justice curriculum for the little kids. And so this guy is trying to take restorative justice to Nairobi.
Wow.
I just, you
That's
know, it can be infectious to somebody who has an ear for it. It's uh, really wonderful, and it's I mean, and that is your second time that you have been recognized as a blue ribbon school in the entire state. And we have a foundation website that we're coming up with, and I got like 2 full pages of acknowledgments of achievement and success of the academy, winning the countywide CCTE showcase. I think we've won it 3 times now, first prize in the entire county, or no, in San Diego Unified School District, which is 150,000 kids or whatever.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, candidly, I just love it when we knock the socks off of the kids from La Jolla and Torrey Pines. And uh, I remember once we were right across the way at the showcase from Torrey Pines, and these kids were dressed, uh, the entire cost of the wardrobe of all of our students and myself included were probably less than a single guy from Torrey Pines with their, uh, you know, fancy shoes and gray flannel slacks and Armani. Kid had an Armani sport coat with the school crest on it, and they had this bells and whistle computer deal, which really looked interesting. And we won it for a restorative
Yes.
justice project. And getting back to what you say about the Innocence Project, we got into team court because I was searching for something that was relevant.
Mm-hmm.
If it's real, it's amazing. These kids stand up.
Yep.
If it's educational, we can get them to work and they can get involved, they can be engaged. But when it's real, just get out of their way and let them go because
Yes.
they will just uh, surprise the heck out of you. And yeah, those relevant projects are, I
Yeah.
think, a key to the success of the academy as well, doing real good.
Yeah, I think I have to say too that, as you said, getting authentic, real life problems and projects. And another thing that's really helped the students is each year we join the annual law week of the San Diego County Bar Association. And what they do is they have a video poster contest. And so I started having the students join this because for two reasons. One, civic engagement, getting them out there, having them look around what's going on in the community that I can become a part of. And second, it's a poster video contest. So we have students who they master tests. They're good at all of the test taking, and they do well. There are some students who don't do well in that forum. So by providing them with another way of showing their talents, it has been awesome. So each year we enter the Law Week annual poster video contest. And each year it's on a legal theme, freedom and equality, free speech. And since we've entered, Steve, our students have won every year that we've entered. In fact, before the COVID year, we actually took first, second, and third place on the poster contest. So it's so wonderful to see the students excel. And I have to say, the first year that I told the students we're going to enter this contest, the subject was civil discourse and the importance of civil discourse. So the first year, the students were, I remember one student said, "Why are we going to enter? We're not going to win." And of course, we won first place video and one of the awards for the poster. So it was so good to have it resonate with the students that you can compete if you take advantage of what we're showing you, what we're teaching, you can compete. And that's what you're saying too about the CCTE showcase.
Yeah.
But
I
what's
had
also,
this
go
the
ahead.
same experience. They were
Yes.
reluctant to do it in our first time out. We won it, and there was a discernible uh, change in attitude. I mean,
It's
we
a
put out
shift.
that
Yeah.
we got back then when the district had a little money, we got $1,000 plus this beautiful banner,
Hmm.
and put the banner up. And the kids got to like in football games when you see somebody pat a mascot or something. A lot of the kids, when we were working on the CCTE project, they come in and they pat the banner, you know, and I think, and near as we can tell, we've had 4 entries and won 3, uh, which is better than any other high school in the district. And it's assessed by some pretty tough, industry partners and administrators. And uh, well, they're amazing kids when you give them a chance and let them, and to my mind, let them go, give them some direction, give them support, and just let them go. They come up with much better ideas than I ever did. Uh,
Yeah. That's
it's
that's true. Let me just throw in there too, when you talk about the students coming up with ideas, one of our best projects that we do now is called Lessons Learned, and it's a student created project. So the seniors in their final year, they develop a PowerPoint or Google Slides on the lessons that they learned, their successes during high school, their failures, the things that they did well, the opportunities that they took, and the opportunities that they let go by. And they also talk about what made them change, what made them transform themselves into a student who didn't care, didn't join, into one who did participate and who did start taking opportunities and having successes. So they create this, and then we take it over to our feeder middle school, Horace Mann, and they present to the our incoming ninth graders, so to the eighth grade students. And the whole point is learn from me, learn from my successes, learn from my failures so that you can start ahead of the game. That project is also has had such an impact, not only on the students who it was presented to, but on our seniors, because it helps them to reflect. That's how we learn. We reflect on what we did, and it helps them in the next stage of their journey so that they can also take lessons from themselves.
Oh, excuse me, I'm having a bad allergy day. Unfortunately, there's good and bad to our garden blooming, and
Mm,
it's, and it really looks nice, but it could kill me. I don't know. So
sorry about that, Steve.
yeah, but um, well, I think that's. I think we've given our listeners something to think about, and hopefully, after the school year starts, maybe we can check in again. Uh, and I'm hopeful that we get the teen court going, and I would be happy to, help out with that if the circumstances are appropriate. I'm afraid of this variant, or who
Yeah,
knows what's happening. Uh, but in any event, I hope I can work a little bit with the kids this year.
sounds
And
good. I hope so too, Steve. That would be great.
wonderful. So thank you very much. And again, listeners, on the resource page, you will be able to find much of the material that Monique discussed, um, uh, reflecting how successful she and the Academy have been, and more importantly, the growth of the kids in the Academy. So I thank you very much. And I know we'll talk soon, but hopefully at the end of the semester, say we can maybe spend another 20, 30 minutes talking about how the first semester went.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.